Good afternoon, Soccerex Connected, the final day of a fascinating week, and we've got loads still to come. Ben Jacobs with you. Please engage with the exhibitors via the app. The full schedule is available as well on the app and the website as well. We've got two absolutely jaw-dropping signed shirts to give away. I'll come to them in a moment, but a reminder that our presenting partner today is WSC Sports. And in terms of what's coming up a little bit later, 2 o'clock, the Rain Man fan panel that will be moderated by Susanna Collins from MLS. At 3 o'clock, we will be joined by Alfredo Lamelli, a journalist with NBC Universal Telemundo, and that panel is called Let's Get Digital Digital. We've got some absolutely brilliantly named panels, and that has to be up there with one of the best. So please do stay tuned throughout the course of the day. And as I say, we have a competition as well, courtesy of our friends at La Liga and the International Champions Cup. If you would like to win a signed Team Atletico Madrid shirt, all you've got to do is send us loads of nice comments and questions, because the most engaged viewer will go home with that throughout the course of the week. So there's some incentive to stay with us throughout the course of the day, attend as many panels as possible, retweet everything, say nice things about the panel and the moderators, and you'll go into the mix to win that prize. And in addition, I've got a signed Antoine Griezmann Barcelona jersey. What a prize that is. That's a shirt coming from this season, thanks to Boris Gartner and all the team at La Liga North America and the International Champions Cup. If you want to win that, you need to simply tell me what is your most iconic La Liga jersey. Mine, for example, is the Atletico Madrid jerseys from 2003, 2004, where every single game they changed it to promote a different film throughout the course of the season. And there was actually a Spider-Man shirt as a result from 2003, 2004. I've posted that on my Twitter if you want to have a look at Jacobs Ben. So what's your most iconic shirt from La Liga? And ideally, you'll post a picture of you in it, but feel free to grab one from the internet as well. Just make sure that there are no copyright restrictions. So two great prizes on day 5 of Soccerex Connected. Let's move on then to our next panel now, 1 o'clock GMT. It's called Player Production Profits, PPP. And there's an added P, a fourth P, sponsoring this one, Pixelot. So it's nicely named and a bit of a tongue twister as well. Player Production Profits, brought to you by Pixelot. Now, every fan loves to see a player on the pitch for their team who has come out of the academy. But for every player that makes it, hundreds, if not thousands, don't. They're released, sold on to other clubs. Many of them even fall out of football altogether. So here we look at the economics of modern club academies and how they've been turned into gold mines for those perhaps willing to focus on turning a profit over holding on and developing their talent. To discuss this topic, we're delighted to be joined by Sean Bay, the head of academy at Valencia, Tony Mamodaly, the head of international operations at Hoffenheim, Matthias Schober is head of sport at Schalke, and Pedro Mil-Homens is the director of academy at Benfica. And your moderator is part of the Cruyff Institute. He is the football finance lecturer, Daniel Martin. Daniel, good afternoon. Over to you.
Good afternoon, Ben, and thank you for that introduction. Welcome and good afternoon to everyone who's tuning in. I'm really excited to moderate this panel. Given my finance background, the word profits in the title always excites me. A real privilege to have 4 of the leading minds in this area of academy and youth development. So, during the course of this session, we hope to talk about some of the key themes in relation to youth development. To start the session, I would like to do some introductions and have each of the panel give their insight. It's been, again, fascinating to catch up with the guys during the week and learn their different backgrounds. And I think by going round each one, I think you'll understand that they're each coming to this area from a different background. So perhaps I could start with Pedro. Could you give me just your understanding of what your idea of a vision of academy is and relate it to Benfica? Obviously, Benfica, famous in the last few years, Joao Felix, Gizon Fernandez, two names that come to mind. But the vision of Benfica and academies in general, Pedro.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon, all of you. Thank you for the invitation. Yes, we have defined some years ago what should be our mission, our mission, our vision, of course, our values. And it has been a very good experience to involve all the people together and discuss in one sentence what is our mission. So in the everyday base, when we move from our house, the academies, we should keep in mind what are we going to do there. So this is our mission. And our mission is very clear. It's to develop young players for the highest competitive level as possible. Of course, if possible, able to join Benfica first team. And this development should be done and supported by the best methodological principles and a very holistic education embodying what we call the Benfica mystic. And okay, this doesn't change even when the results are not the ones we expect. So this is the mission of every single collaborator we have in our academy, to produce players for the highest possible competitive level, and if possible, to join Benfica first team. And as a dream or as a vision for the future, we would like to be seen as a word reference in youth football. See, it's a kind of inspiration, what we would like to be on the future, to be seen by others as a reference in youth football. I think I've summarized what is our mission and our vision in Benfica.
Yeah, fantastic, Pedro. And some of the themes you mentioned there, we will dig into a little deeper. But if I could move from Portugal to Spain and Valencia, Sean, good afternoon. And again, to name check some of the stars from your own academy, Ferran Torres, Gonzalo Villa, to name a couple. Again, it would be great to have an insight on the Valencia vision for their academy.
Thank you, Daniel. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sean from the Valencia CF Academy. Happy to be here to join all my colleagues here today. Basically, for our academy, we have a vision similar to what Pedro has at Benfica as well. Our vision is, first and foremost, to educate people, followed by developing footballers. So this is the vision that we are reminded of every day during the course of our work. There are basically three areas that we are very focused on. The first is definitely focused on football, which is to create the best possible pathways for young talents to reach professional level. Hopefully, they'll be playing for our first team in future. But I mean, if they are able to reach a professional level for other clubs, whether it is in Spain or other leagues, that is our wish as well. And secondly, part of this process, we have a responsibility to create a safety net for players who might not be able to make it at that level. We have to find other options for them. So we do a lot of work in terms of schooling and education for these players. And we have also been pushing a lot of work in terms of innovation to expand the possibilities in terms of our work. Because unlike the first team level for most footballers, the academy is basically a platform, a long-term project and investment where we can do more in terms of development and education. Is the platform where most of them have the chance to make mistakes and hopefully grow from it, and eventually tie back to our first aim, which is for them to reach a professional level in football.
Thank you, Sean. And again, some interesting themes that you've touched on that we will develop as the conversation progresses. So if I could perhaps move to Germany now, and two very famous clubs from Germany with reputations of player development. First of all, if I could go to Schalke and Matthias, and again, just naming some familiar household names: Leroy Sanya, Gundogan, Jo Matip, Julian Draxler. The list is endless. But again, could you give us a bit of an insight at a high level on the Schalke vision for their academy?
Yeah, hello everybody, and thank you for the invitation and that I can be here, and yeah, we can have a good conversation. And for us also, it's the main aim is to create professional player for our first team. As you said, we had in the past some fantastic players, and hopefully We will have it also in the future. So the main aim is to develop players to this level of the first team players. But also, if they don't do it to the first team of Schalke 04, we are also happy if we create professional players in other leagues in Germany in second league, or maybe in the Netherlands, which is really close to Germany, or something, some other countries around us. So this is the main aim in the football side. But also, it's very important for us to have the holistic development in our eyes, and also we want to develop and make set the focus always on the schooling side, because in the statistic it is that not so much player will do it to the professionals. Most of them don't do it, and then it's our aim that they are prepared for a good life in a normal work, and also maybe they are prepared in the personality to be prepared for the real life. This is our aim. First, it is the professional player development, but also the other things I explained.
Thank you, Matthias. And Tony, Hoffenheim, again, doing the name check, Nicholas Soule, Jonas Hoffmann, to name a couple. Could you wrap up the sort of vision of your academy just to complete the set?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and especially among the panel. I would like to break down that question into basically two parts, because one thing is really our goal, and that is something that obviously all of the other three guys that have spoken before me already mentioned, is that of course it's our goal as an academy to develop top talent that will eventually shape the future and build the core of our first team. That's important because of economic reasons, but it's also important to build strong identification with the region and the fans. But it's also, I think, important to make a clear distinction between the academy landscape and the professional setup, because on the professional side, you're much more short-term oriented due to relegation and the need to win and the pressure that comes with it, obviously. But that brings it to our second part, which is the vision itself of our academy, and that is much bigger than just football, because what we do here, or what we try to do, is much more holistic and the human being first, and then soccer player second approach. Because the academy is not only the bridge from, I would say, youth football to professional stage, but it's also the bridge from youth to adulthood. So you have, if you consider how much time the players spent here in the academy in contrast to the time that they spend at home, how much and who they spend time with and who they look up to, that basically shifts the conversation, and the role of the academy becomes much more complex. And so we understand that in football we have an incredible platform that others look up to, and the power of the individual is a very prominent role in society. So that brings us to a huge opportunity, but also a huge responsibility to instill the right values in our players, because they are role models both internally. So they are role models for the players that are maybe on the under 12, under 13, and they look up to the players that are at the under 18, under 19, but they are also role models externally. So when they go to school, within their communities, within their families, other players look up to them. So in short, the vision or mission for our academy is really to prepare them, for the professional stage, but it's also to prepare the players to be successful not only in football, but to become successful in life through the values that they learn and adopt in football.
Excellent. Thanks, Tony. So yeah, fantastic, insight there into some of the visions of leading academies in Europe. But if I could drill down and take it now into the theme of the economics, and I think, Tony, you touched on this. So the economics of a modern day academy, and there's a couple of themes here from my finance background, and obviously having worked in senior finance positions in clubs. So looking at an academy, there's a long-term investment. If you just look at pure numbers and not the player side, there's a long-term investment, and typically a manager may not be around to see a player as they enter the academy going into first team, and equally even management, executive management. So actually aligning that vision to the overall club's vision is interesting for me. But I suppose a fundamental question I'd like to ask, and Pedro, perhaps I could pick your brains on this, is should the goal of every academy be to become self-sufficient and self-funded? I mean, I've been asked by CEOs in the past, can you tell me the ROI on the academy? And that's probably another session in itself, but perhaps, Pedro, you could give us your insight from your position.
Okay. Let me start saying that, as we all know, football academies are not, I would say, independent entities. In other words, they are not private academies according the FIFA rules. So this means that an academy belongs to a club, and all our academy players are assets with zero value on the account results of the club until they would be transferred to another club. It could be a bit strange, but when we sold 2 seasons ago Johan to Athletic Madrid for 120 million, on the day before, on the account results of the club, his value was 0. So this means that, therefore, these are the football rules, and we have to live with that. So what we could call the return on investment should be analyzed not in an annual base like we do in a factory. If we were producing, let's say, furniture or whatever, we need to balance the results of the raw material we're receiving every day, every year, every month on the factory, and the income that we could got on the sales of that furniture. So we should look at a big cycle, or at least some years. Normally, I say, from my experience, that the cycle of an academy player is around 10 years. Let's say that if we recruit them nowadays, earlier and earlier, about the age of 7, 8 years, maybe only when he's 17, 18, that we have not almost sure, but quite sure, or we have some insight that this guy and this one could be probably a pro, it could be a potential player for our professional team. So looking in our case, we started academy in Benfica in 2006, 2007. And in this cycle, roughly, we got an income in around 500 million euros in sales. And if I count in average, what is our budget a year, it's around 10, 12 million a year. I would say that the return on investment for this cycle has been around 200, 250 million euros. So if we look in a long cycle, we could say that, okay, this is a very, let's say, safe activity. If we look in a year cycle, I think it doesn't make sense to do that. And as it was already mentioned, an academy has some other goals. We develop young boys to become football players, but we also develop them to be as well as educated and well-developed people as possible to become, let's say, a citizen in our society. So if for one or two reasons, or for a variety of reasons, we don't promote players to the first team in 1 or 2 seasons, please don't panic. It's a little bit like the wine. We all know that there are years where the quality of the grapes are not so good. So the production of the wine for that year is not as good as in the past. So a very important word, I think, as an academy manager is patient. We have to be patient. We have to give time. We have to, of course, we have to believe in our methodological approach, what we are doing, in our recruitment, in all the process. And if we are confident that we are doing a very good process, we are doing our best, okay, we need a cycle. And we need to look at the, let's say, 5 or 10-year cycle to make this calculation regarding the return on investment that we have done.
Thank you, Pedro. I thought sort of interesting things you spoke about there, actually fascinating. First of all, the scale of the numbers in terms of Benfica Academy, and that's testament to the great work that's been done. And obviously, as a finance background, you know, obviously that's very exciting. The concept you described there, youth academy players on a balance sheet are typically zero value due to accounting rules, but the gain on sale would just ultimately go to the bottom line. So back to that theme of player production profits. But the other theme that you touched on was, and I like the analogy of the wine, the fine wine. You might not get a good batch every year, but if I could maybe move on to Mathias, and actually, if you could give us a feel for how we or the key traits of player pathway fundamentals. So what are the key things that you're doing in your academy to try and produce that wine, that fine wine every year? Noted, it's not going to happen, but what are the key things that you do on a day-to-day basis to keep that production of players going?
Yeah, I think it's a bit different of the wine, because the wine you can put in the bunker, in the trunk, it's good. Then it's how older it is, it's better. But for the players, and I think it's a really big key for, in my opinion, the whole thing is the coach. The coach, I think, the coaches. Also, we have special coaches like athletic coach. We also have analysts. All these things are coming together. But the coach on his side is really important. And good coaches are the key, because we think the coach is the teacher. He's sometimes also the father, maybe, because as Tony said, the players, they are so long time in our academy, and they are so long time together with the coaches that I think it's really important that you have good coaches. But also then, what is a good coach? I think in the past it was always that everybody was looking on the table and say, oh, okay, the under 16 of Schalke, they did the first place. There is a good coach. But for us, a really good coach is a coach who develops the player so good that they make it to the next age group. For example, from under 13 to under 14. How many players from these age group we put into under 14? This is for us is a real important thing, and maybe a thing we see our coaches that's important for us. As I said in the past, I think it was more the way to win games, to have a match plan, the feeling for a good coach was only in this case. But for us, as I said, it's really important that the coaches develop the player and that they make them so good that they make it to the next age group, hopefully so good to our professionals. And also it is the personality of a player is also really important. So on the pitch, a forward, as an example, he takes the decision to go to the right side, to the left side, to shoot on the goal or to pass in the middle. He makes his own decisions. And also we wanted that they develop also beside the pitch, that they also make their decisions, what to do. And also to talk by themselves to the coaches, to the head of academies, and not that they put it to the agents, to the parents. This is also a little step that we want to have player. They have a really good personality, and for us also it's important to develop or to have different coaches, different systems. It's not like in the past it was the Ajax system, that 4-3-3 from the first team down to the youth. This was the system. In our academy, it's like we try to give them different systems and also different positions, that not one defender is a defender, so also he can play on the 6 or in the midfield on the side, that he has different views of positions and to learn different places on the pitch. And this is for us also important, because maybe they don't do it in our professional team, but they are then prepared for a professional soccer game in other games or in other clubs. So for us, this is really important.
Yeah, and just extending that there, Matthias, and linking it back to the economics question again. Presumably, the ability of the first team coach to buy into the academy's vision as well, and ultimately give opportunities to play. Because as Pedro touched upon, yes, players can be sold, but also actually having players in the first team helps the financial sustainability of clubs as well, because then they're not spending on transfer fees. So presumably in Schalke, your first team coach, is very much aligned with looking at that academy and building on the key things that you're doing.
Yeah, it's as Pedro said, it's really important for the economic side. Also, for the identification, I think Tony said it, it's for the identification of the club, for the fans. If there is a player, a homegrown player out of the academy, it's fantastic. Everybody love our player from the academy. And also it's like to the opportunity to play. We have also 3-4 players who are in the first team now from the academy from last year under 19. So they played many games. And besides, we also have the second team, where young talents have the opportunity to play in the second team. So I think also this is important to have minutes on the pitch for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Now I wanted to move on to another theme. I think actually every one of you has mentioned this so far, and Sean, maybe you could elaborate on it. But actually, it's this holistic approach to a player. So that Tony mentioned the player is a human being first, and then a soccer player, and really there's some fascinating things happening at Valencia, and I just wondered if you could give us some of the latest thinking around education of players, psychological support, personality development, that side of the business that's evolving. That would be great, Sean, if you could speak about that.
We are actually very focused on an all-rounded education and development for the players, because the common thinking is that for a young player, they just have to live in football 24/7. But the reality is they are very, very young people, and we have to mold their minds and shape their character so that they are prepared for the rigors of professional football. And the reality is there is a lack of focus in this aspect. So, for example, we have been pushing our boys to go to school, and we are tying it to their minutes on the pitch as well. If you are skipping school, you're not going to play this weekend. So, and I think especially at this stage in the academy, this is something that we can still enforce to ensure that they have a healthy routine and balance between football and other aspects that they can develop in and grow. One other area that we have been working a lot more is also in the area of psychological support. We have a psych department to talk to the players, to help them learn and manage different circumstances in football, whether it's after a defeat, after a serious injury, or certain situation. And especially, I think, over the past year with the COVID-19 situation, this has come in very, very handy to help us communicate and also understand the struggles and how to deal with them, especially for young players and their families. One other area is that basically I think most academies have very fantastic hardware, the facilities and all that. but we try to foster and instill the software part as well, a sense of identity and a sense of family with all the players together, with the technical staff. We offer a lot of courses for our technical staff to do some upgrading, to get them more involved outside of football in the lives of the players as well, to grow this sense of a close-knit family. And you have everyone fighting for each other. So this is the part where, as a group, sometimes we are stronger, we are more motivated together for the players as well. They push each other on. And lastly, there's one area that we have built over the past 2 years plus, which is a department on individual training. Essentially, we have seen a lot of young players who make the step up to first team, and then they struggle afterwards because most of them have a lack of 2 or 3 years of development compared to the other professional players that they are competing against. And when you make it to the first team, you don't have that time, space, nor patience from the technical staff to help you grow as how you should be developing. So this is a department where we have our staff looking at individual players with huge potential, and also we have staff looking at whether you're in attack or defense to help you grow all these skills, technical skills that will help you compete at a professional level. Essentially, they will have to put in extra hours, whether it's in the gym, on the pitch, outside of training, whether it's with our psychologists. We have to help them bridge the gap between academy competition level to a professional competition level. So this is a big department that we're trying to grow over the next few years. We're trying to bring in more data, more sports science to help us understand this process better and to improve our work.
Well, thanks, Sean. And I think if I could just pick up on that point, you mentioned just the challenges of transition. So from the academy to first team, I think you mentioned that there. And maybe Tony, perhaps you could give us an insight, and even from your own personal experience as well. What happens to players who aren't given a chance to play, or even players who don't make it? I mean, if we think of going back to the production process, yeah, there may be a case where actually not every player is going to make that final product. So perhaps, Tony, you could give us an insight on some of those challenges of transition.
Absolutely. First of all, I think I want to touch base on what Pedro mentioned. And as a club, you always have to have a strategy in place if you want to be, and you have to be patient and you have to be confident. But you can only be patient and confident if you know what you're doing as a club. And that stems from a clear strategy and from a deep understanding of what you're doing as a club. So for us on our end, we have a very scientific and innovation and data-driven approach to everything that we do. But I think to answer your question, we did a research internally, and we discovered that 92 out of 395 players that ran through our academy made a successful transition from academy player to the first team. And that, to come to the economics of it, cumulates into a market value of $300 to $400 million, depending on which season you measure it. But that means that you have 26% of academy graduates that make it into the first team, which is an outstanding number in comparison to the 3.5% that you have in average in the German academy environment. So from the first to the third division in Germany, actually only 3.5% of all players that run through an academy make it to the first team. And that includes the first, second, and the third division. So I think 26% is a very outstanding number, but at the same time, that means that 74% or 3 out of 4 players don't make it to the first team. And so for us, we come out of a position of understanding the responsibility that comes with it. So for us, we try to always look at systems of how we can actually balance both sides of the coin. And so, for instance, every player that runs through our academy is basically required to finish his high school degree, because that is just the most valid tool to access life later on. But it's also basically the starting point of an alternative career pathway. So for instance, we had a kid, Alexander Nitzel, who came to us from Bayern Munich, who was team captain at Bayern Munich and the under-19, who had 21 national team caps for Germany. And he came to us with a clear pathway and clear mindset that he was going pro here in our academy. And eventually he didn't make it, which still leaves a couple questions on our end. Why not? And I think all of us here can agree that it's very difficult to streamline the process of turning a talent into a professional, because if one of us would have found that magic sauce, I think we would not be sitting here and discussing this. But Alex went on, and he's now studying at the University of Maryland, where he can play both soccer and at the same time study for his bachelor's degree. And so this is basically an alternative career pathway that we try to streamline so that players don't actually see themselves as failures and actually see that they have an alternative route if they don't make it into the first team. We also partnered with FC Cincinnati of Major League Soccer to have an alternative pathway in addition to the college landscape and really the first team and the under-23 team. So we have, for instance, Franco Kovacevic on loan, who's from our under-23 team, and he is getting playing time in MLS because it's, I would say, from a quality level, it's between the first Bundesliga in Germany and the second Bundesliga. So this is something that we can try to streamline from our end, and that's really important to us, coming out of a deep understanding that we have responsibility to each and every player that runs through our academy.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. So look, this discussion's been fantastic so far. There are people online throughout the world who are keen to ask some questions, and I have one here from Oscar. So let me read this out because it's relevant to the discussion. Oscar asks, are young players now under more pressure than ever to perform at an earlier stage than in the past, especially when teams look to cash in early? And I suppose that's the context of maybe some of the financial constraints within certain clubs at the moment. So I'll open that to the floor for anyone who would wish to give an insight to Oscar.
Maybe I'll start off. Basically,
Yes,
I think
Pedro.
for a lot of young players now, the main pressure that they're facing is also from the increased visibility of all these young talents across all platforms, whether it's from video games and all that. Everyone starts to see a lot of names being thrown out there, the next superstar to emerge and all that. And I think that comes along with a huge baggage for a lot of these young players. And if they're not equipped with the skills to manage this sort of pressure, it can be detrimental to their development. In terms of, you have their agents coming in, negotiating something different for a superstar compared to a player who is relatively less well known. And also in terms of his position in the team, if you're investing a certain amount in a superstar, the level of pressure internally is going to be suffocating for the player as well. So that, I think, has taken a lot of young players out of a comfortable zone inside the academy to a certain level that's similar to what professional players face in the first team and professional leagues. So this is my view. I totally agree that it has increased the pressure on them.
And in terms of, if we go to the actual, again, back to the economics of realising the sale, when a player has made it, he's spent some time within the first team, and for whatever reason, his own career development or the financials of the club itself, it's decided to sell. From your guys' perspective, what are some of the key things that need to make that happen? And I'm thinking, does a strong reputation assist in that player sale process? I mean, Pedro, you talked about some of the numbers within Benfica there. Presumably the reputation of the work that's done before really helps that sale process.
Yes, of course it helps, but I think the main question is for the buyer is the quality of the player. It's crucial, of course. If you allow me to just to underline something to the question before, and
Sure.
I think the answering this the question from Oscar, if I understood it correctly, he wants to have our opinion about how much the pressure on the young boys is nowadays compared with some years on the past. I'm in a position where I can compare from my experience what I have experienced 20 years ago, what I'm seeing now, and it's really a huge difference. And I would underline two sources of pressure: parents, agents. In my, let's say, in my first experience as academy director, I haven't seen, let's say, boys with the age of 14 years old coming to us just to sign, let's say, our first scholarship agreement or whatever with an agent. It was rather seldom it happens. Nowadays, it's almost everyone. And the parents themselves, we do a lot. We do a lot of try. We try a lot of education on the parents' side, because some of the parents project on the boy, especially if we are speaking about the father. What he was not able to achieve as a player that he would like to have been on the past. So sometimes they project on this small boy, on this son, what he would like to be. And sometimes things are not the head of a small boy of 14 years old doesn't work as the head of his father. So from my experience, I would say to Oscar, yes, pressure is too much. The visibility of the games of the youth is so big nowadays in YouTube, whatever, on the TV, for instance, the TV. Is there any reason why the TV broadcast a game of age of under 10 or under 11? Does it make sense? I'm speaking against myself, because the TV of my club does that, and I don't agree on that. How should we broadcast a game of under sevens? It doesn't make any sense. So it's
Pedro. I'll interject. I'll interject there. Sorry, that's fascinating. I'm conscious of our time here, and we seem to have a lot of popular themes to discuss. We've got about 3 minutes left, guys. So one topic that has come from the floor as well is the loan system. So maybe there's a couple of questions still to go. If we keep the answers brief, it's just how the question is, how much has changed with the way you manage loans away from the club? Are you now a lot more involved? And I think that pulls together some of the themes we talked about, some players who aren't making it, but also protecting value for those who may not be developing. Everyone's developing at different pace. So perhaps, Mathias or Tony could mention about how effective you've used loan systems.
Yes.
And I'll give you.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. I'll give you 30 seconds to a minute for this one, Tony. There's plenty more to come.
Well, it's. I don't think that there's a one-size-fits-it-all answer to this. I think it can be in singular cases. It can be a very, very important and strategic move, especially for academy players that ran through the academy without ever experiencing any problems. And I know many of us have kids. I have a 3-year-old, and we all wish that our kids have a life as simple as possible without encountering any difficulties. But the reality is, at the same time, we all know that we can only grow and develop ourselves if we encounter difficulties. And if we fail and we fall flat on our face, and then we get up and we develop resiliency. So sometimes a loan can really be a strategic difficulty that you can trigger to trigger that development. But I have to say that the way that it's been exploited by some clubs in recent years is not healthy, and I think it's FIFA's obligation to really, and it's a good thing that they are stepping in, because the way it has been exploited is yeah, it's not sustainable.
Okay, thank you. Listen, guys, we're very close to the time allocated. It's amazing how quickly things have progressed. A lot of real great discussions. But if I could try and summarize or conclude on some of the themes we've talked about. So from my understanding of what you guys, the experts in the field, have said, to be successful in the area of youth development, as a club, you should ensure young players have a chance to play first and foremost. Promote a shared development of philosophy aligned with the economic reality of the club. So we've talked about, yes, player pathway all the way through, but the pressures of different pressures of clubs from a financial perspective. Develop effective organisation from an operation point of view. Again, Sean, Tony, you touched on the holistic approach and really how modern academies are structuring themselves to ensure that that pipeline can be as consistent as possible. And yes, finally, that holistic approach, again, it just seems to be that is adding to what traditionally has happened in academies. So I would like to thank all of you, every one of you. It's real pleasure, fascinating insight, and look forward to continuing discussions in the future with you all.